Yes, mate, how's it going? My name's Lee, and welcome back to the FPL YouTube channel. This is the second episode of a new series called This or That, focusing on Game Week 5. This is where we put two players head-to-head, comparing form, fixtures, and data, then we make a decision on who is the best option between this player or that player. Let's jump straight into today's matchup. Who should you pick? Let's find out.
Be strong.
Our first matchup is two 4.5 million goalkeepers. Sanchez for Chelsea versus Flekken from Brentford. I think the form probably favours Sanchez because they've kept a clean sheet as opposed to Brentford. However, I do think the fixtures do favour Brentford with the likes of Spurs, West Ham, Wolves, Man United and Ipswich in the next 5. I think there's a real chance of keeping clean sheets within there. I do think, although Sanchez has got competition for his place, I do think minutes are locked for both goalkeepers. I do think they are both nailed. The predicted clean sheets, Brentford are predicted to keep 0.2 more at 1.4 as opposed to Chelsea's 1.2. And as a result of that, Brentford and Flekken are expected to get more points over that period as well. I do think Chelsea have got good short-term fixtures with the likes of West Ham, Brighton and Forest, but then do get a little bit tough after that point with Liverpool and Newcastle in Game Week 8 and Game Week 9. For me, this is a no-brainer. If you're going to pick a goalkeeper right now, I'm picking Flekken all day of the week. Let's move on to the defenders. Next up, we've got the first defender matchup, and we've gone Ligt for my boys versus Konate of Liverpool. I do think the form does favour Konate, even though Ligt scored recently. Liverpool have kept a few clean sheets, and as a result of that, I do think the form probably favours Liverpool. I think both teams have got relatively good fixtures. They're just placed in different areas. Man United have got Palace, Spurs and Aston Villa, which are pretty tough. But then Game Week 8 and Game Week 9, they've got Brentford and Wolves, as opposed to Konate. That's almost flipped in a way where they've got good fixtures early on, or coming up in Game Week 5 and Game Week 6 against Bournemouth and Wolves. And then they've got Palace, Chelsea and Arsenal in Game Week 7, 8 and 9. I think it depends which way you want to go. If you want an immediate short-term fix, Konate might be the option. If you want a longer-term option, Ligt might be the man. I think Ligt probably has got he's more nailed for his minutes. Konate can always get rotated with the likes of Kwanzaa. So that puts me off him ever so slightly, but he's a cheap option into one of the better defences in the league. Liverpool I expect to keep more clean sheets over this 5-game period, 1.4. Man United are only predicted to keep 1.2. We have been relatively decent for clean sheets. I think we've been a little bit lucky, particularly against Southampton, where we did concede a penalty and probably should have conceded. And they are predicted to both get 15.6 points over this period, and that wouldn't be a bad return. So as of right now, I think it depends. Like I said, like if you want a short-term option, Konate. If you want a longer-term option, Ligt. And as a result of that, I would always prefer to plan long-term. So it's a little bit strange, but I'm going to go for Ligt. I'm going to back my boys to keep us some clean sheets, and he's got that attacking goal threat from corners. Ligt is what I'm going for. Our next defender matchup is a repeat of the North London derby. Porro versus Gabriel of Arsenal. Porro is slightly cheaper than Gabriel at 5.5, but he's a lot more owned than Gabriel. He's currently 6 million and owned by 19.1% of the game. Arsenal and Gabriel have obviously got the form. Gabriel scored recently as well against Spurs, so form definitely favours Gabriel. I think the fixtures favour Arsenal just because I think they're more reliable of clean sheets. I think they're both nailed in terms of minutes. That one's probably a draw. As you can see down at the bottom there, predicted clean sheets, Arsenal are predicted to get 2.2 as opposed to Spurs 1.3. And I think that's just because Arsenal have been so good over the past year or so at keeping defensively solid, keeping those clean sheets, and that's resulting in the expected points as well, with Gabriel expected to get 23.6 points as opposed to Porro's 19.5. Gabriel, although he's got Man City this week, I think there's still chance of them keeping a clean sheet. I think they'll keep very, very tight and very solid against it, and I can see them keeping a clean sheet in that. And then 6, 7, 8 against the likes of Leicester, Southampton and Bournemouth. Just look prime fixtures for keeping a clean sheet there. As opposed to Porro, he seems to have a good fixture, then almost like a bad fixture. Brentford in 5 is great, but then Man United in 6 and West Ham at home in 8 aren't the greatest fixtures. I think FPL have been a little bit kind to them in terms of the difficulty rating of this. I think Brighton is a tough game, and any kind of game away, whether that's Brighton or Palace, is always going to be a tough game. I think Spurs might keep 1, 2 clean sheets in this. I can see Arsenal keeping 3 or 4 within that 5-game period. So, like for me, again, this is just such a no-brainer. I think Gabriel is worth a 0.5 more, and Gabriel is the clear winner for me in this, in a repeat of the result of the North London derby. If you disagree, leave a comment down below. Our first midfielder matchup is Bryan Mbeumo, 7.1 million versus Luis Diaz, 7.7 million. I think form is pretty even so far, and Mbeumo's got 3 goals, no assists. Luis Diaz has got 3 goals and 1 assist. I think the fixtures are relatively similar as well. I think they've both got some good games and some difficult games in there. However, I do think Bryan Mbeumo is more nailed than Luis Diaz. There's always the prospect of the likes of Darwin Núñez coming in, or Jota taking that position, and they might move around with a certain formation. Gakpo might come in and take some minutes off Luis Diaz as well. So that's kind of what's making me favour Bryan Mbeumo in terms of the minutes aspect. In terms of the fixtures themselves, Mbeumo's got Spurs, which I don't hate for Brentford playing on the counter-attack, and then West Ham, Wolves, Man United, Ipswich. I think they're all pretty good games. And with Wissa being out injured, a lot of the onus will be placed, and or responsibility will place on Mbeumo to actually do something. And I think he'll relish that and do relatively well under it, as opposed to Luis Diaz. Probably similar to what we had with Konate before, where they've got great short-term fixtures with Bournemouth and Wolves in 5 and 6, but then a semi-difficult run between 7 and 9. It depends if you want this kind of short-term fix with Luis Diaz, or if you want to plan for the long term with Bryan Mbeumo. Mbeumo is still predicted to get more points over that 5-game period with 27.2 as opposed to Luis Diaz 23.8. Liverpool are expected to score more goals over this period. However, I do think Salah will be heavily involved in that, and how much Luis Diaz can get involved remains to kind of be seen over the course of that. And if any kind of rotation gets brought into that at all, then his expected points and expected minutes will obviously drop as a result of that. I think even though Brentford don't expect to score 7.1 goals, I think Mbeumo will be heavily involved in that. And if he can get 3 or 4 goals over that period, then that's a great turn for that. So for me right now, like I said, if you want to go short term, Luis Diaz, I would always rather plan for the longer term. But as a result of this, I'm going Mbeumo every single day of the week. So Mbeumo is my pick between Mbeumo and Luis Diaz. Right, I know what you're thinking. I'm a Man United fan picking all these Man United players. Yeah, I've just watched Man United smash Barnsley 7-0 and I'm picking Marcus Rashford. What are you going to do about it? So what? I think they're both pretty good options here. It's going to be Rashford versus Mitoma, 6.9 million versus 7 million for Mitoma. I think they're both in pretty good form. I'd probably favour Mitoma if anything. But I think Rashford scoring most recently, getting a couple goals last night, I kind of just like the kind of vibe that's feeling around Marcus Rashford right now. I think the fixtures, particularly longer term fixtures, are better for Man United and for Rashford, as opposed to for Mitoma. I think Brighton have a great fixture in 5 and 9, but a pretty tough run in the middle. I think United can always score in most games, and Rashford is usually there or thereabouts. And if we can kind of get him back to any kind of form, and post-World Cup when he had that incredible run, then you're kind of laughing. I think they're both pretty nailed 4 minutes. I think United's favoured starting lineup would be Rashford on the left, Højlund up front, and Garnacho. There's obviously going to be a lot of rotation in that, with the likes of Ahmad and Xerxes coming in there, and then the odd time Anthony does get minutes, but I think Rashford is pretty kind of nailed 4 minutes. Mitoma is expected to get more points over this 5-game period with 23.7 as opposed to Rashford's 18.6. But United are expected to score more goals over that 5-game period with 7 as opposed to Brighton's 5.8. I know it's biased. I don't care. I'm picking Rashford. I love him, and I just hope we can see even half of the best Rashford coming up. And if we can get you even close to that, I think he's just going to be absolutely incredible to watch, and he's going to absolutely smash it. For I'm picking Rashford. Leave a comment down below if you think I'm biased. I don't really care. Is what it is, isn't it? The first forward matchup is the battle of the budget forwards. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 5.9 million forward for Everton, 2.9% owned, versus blast from the past Jamie Vardy, 5.7 million, 8.6% owned, playing for Leicester. They've both been in relatively decent form for their teams. Both got a couple of goals, so I don't think you can split them on that. In terms of the fixtures, they've both got pretty good fixtures. They've both got 4 green fixtures and 1 not so green. So Everton have got Leicester, Palace, Newcastle, Ipswich and Fulham in the next 5 as opposed to Leicester. We've got Everton, then Arsenal in 6, which is obviously a tough game. So if you can manoeuvre around that game week 6 fixture, then it might not be a bad pick to go with someone like Vardy, because after that he's got Bournemouth, Southampton and Forest, and then a couple of decent games after that as well. Minutes wise, I think they're both pretty nailed to start, but they might not always complete 90 minutes. Especially with Vardy getting on, he's 36, 37 now, so he might not play 90 minutes every single week. Calvert-Lewin always picks up injuries. He's always going to get rotated and benched from time to time. So that's probably a very close one as well. So I'm going to put that one down as a draw as well. This is probably one of the closest comparisons we've done in the video so far. terms of expected points, Calvert-Lewin is expected to get more points over the 5 game weeks, with 22.7 points as opposed to Vardy 19.1. West Ham are predicted to score more goals over that period with 6.9 as opposed to Everton's 5.8. What I like about both these players is that they're both on penalties. They're both quite talismanic to their teams, and when they are fit and when they are firing, they are quite effective at what they do, and they do score a lot of goals. In terms of picking either one of these, I think they're both good long-term holds. And probably, this is a really hard one. I think I'm going to go Calvert-Lewin, but this is like 51% Calvert-Lewin, 49 Jamie Vardy. I've got a transfer decision to make. I've got Isak, Wissa, and João Pedro up front, so I might not have any starting forwards, and it's between these two that I'm going to take Wissa out, maybe for Calvert-Lewin or Jamie Vardy. Like I said, I might change tomorrow. The winner tomorrow might be Jamie Vardy, but on the weekend it might be Calvert-Lewin again. I think I'm going to leave it as long as possible because Calvert-Lewin did and was ill for the Carabao Cup game, so I'm going to leave it as long as possible. Really close one, really close. I think I'm still leaning Calvert-Lewin for now, but I can see the reason why you might go for Jamie Vardy. Leave a comment down below if you are going for Vardy as opposed to Calvert-Lewin. Our last matchup is Solanke versus Mateta. Solanke, 7.5 million forward for Spurs, 7% owned. His ownership has plummeted recently, and how he's not had a price drop, I will never know. Mateta, 7.4 million forward for Palace, 4.3% owned, so they're pretty similar in terms of ownership. And the form is definitely lies with Mateta, who did score a couple goals on the weekend. He is on penalties from the looks of things as well. I thought Eze was going to be nailed for that. Mateta did take this one. There might be some kind of rotation in terms of the penalty takers with Eze and Mateta. Don't really like that at all. I do think the fixtures definitely favour Spurs and Solanke, who hasn't scored yet. I think it's only a matter of time before he does. But he's got Brentford in 5, Man United away in 6, Brighton away in 7, West Ham at home in 8, and then Palace away in 9. As opposed to Mateta, who's got a relatively tough run for the next 3, Man United, Everton and Liverpool. And then game week 8, Forest, and game week 9, Spurs. So I would definitely give the fixtures a kind of, I would definitely favour the fixtures for Spurs and Solanke in terms of, I think they're both nailed, so that one's an even. I think they're both pretty much guaranteed to play number 9 when fit and to play majority of the minutes. The expected points, Solanke is predicted to get more points over this 5-game period with 26, as opposed to Mateta's 24.4. The predicted goals, Spurs are expected to score more goals within this period as well, with 7.6 as opposed to Mateta's 7.1. The thing I would kind of argue with that is with Crystal Palace, I would expect Mateta and Eze to be heavily involved within those goals, as opposed to Spurs when you get quite a lot of different goal scorers. It could be Solanke, it could be it could be Madison, it could be Kulusevski. So they have got a few different avenues where they can score. But for me, I would still pick Solanke in this. I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see the good in him. And I thought he played okay in the weekend versus Arsenal. I thought he'd give Saliba quite a tough time. And I know Arsenal obviously won 1-0 and Spurs didn't score, but I thought Spurs were great. I thought they actually played pretty well and contained them pretty well. But Solanke, for me, I think it's only a matter of time before he does score, and that's the reason why I'm going to give this round to Solanke. If you disagree with any of my selections, leave a comment down below. It's the reasons why. That's all for this week's episode of This or That, focusing on Game Week 5. Who are you picking for your team? Leave a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, share with your fellow FPL managers. See you in the next one. Good luck this game week. Peace and love.